Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are tackling a topic that is literally reshaping how we create and share knowledge around the world. Generative AI tools have completely woven themselves into our research and writing workflows. But, this rapid shift has brought up a massive, really urgent challenge. How exactly do we navigate the blurry, complicated rules of using AI in academic publishing? Our goal today isn't to take sides on whether you should or shouldn't be using these tools. Instead, we're going to look strictly at the latest, most authoritative guidelines so we can navigate this new landscape transparently and ethically.
To really grasp why this matters right this second, just consider this staggering statistic from a recent global survey of over 5,000 authors. A whopping 90% of them reported that they already find AI totally appropriate for editing research articles. And 65%? Well, they support using it to actually draft those articles. So this is definitely not some far-off sci-fi future scenario. AI is already sitting right beside the vast majority of researchers as a highly capable co-pilot.
Because this technology is moving at lightning speed, we really need a solid anchor. So we're grounding today's entire explainer in the highly prestigious AME Guide number 192, which was recently published in the journal Medical Teacher. This document was carefully crafted by a panel of editors from major health professions education journals. They've essentially taken all these ethical complexities and distilled them down into a practical framework. And that is exactly what we're going to unpack for you today.
Okay, let's dive into this roadmap. 1. The silent academic collaborator. 2. Authorship and ultimate responsibility. 3. When to disclose AI use. 4. How to disclose AI properly. And 5. Peer review and the future.
Section 1. The silent academic collaborator. Before we get into the rules, let's make sure we're all on the exact same page about what we're dealing with. We're focusing specifically on GenAI, or Generative Artificial Intelligence. We're talking about tools using large language models. Think ChatGPT, Perplexity, or Gemini. The really key part of this definition is that these tools automatically produce original, human-like content, whether that's text, images, or even code, based directly on what a human user prompts them to do.
And this brilliantly illustrates one of the absolute most critical distinctions in the guidelines: the difference between AI-assisted and AI-generated content. AI-assisted content is basically when you, the human, write the draft and the AI just acts as a super-powered grammar and spell checker. You are firmly 100% in control. AI-generated content, on the other hand, is when you give a prompt and the AI generates substantive original text, new ideas, or framing that you then go in and edit. As you'll see, where your work falls on the spectrum heavily dictates what you're responsible for.
Section 2. Authorship and ultimate responsibility.
So, with AI generating so much content these days, who actually owns the work? This leads to a lot of fear around what some call AI-jurism. But the hard and fast rule across major publishers like Taylor and Francis and organizations like COPE is simply this: an AI system cannot be listed as an author. No way. And why is that? Well, it's not a question of technical ability at all. It's entirely a question of legal and moral accountability. An AI simply can't accept responsibility for a conflict of interest or, say, a fabricated data point. So, at the end of the day, the human author remains entirely accountable for the integrity of the submission, whether an AI helped them out or not. Because you, the human, are solely responsible, the AME guidelines establish a very strict verification mandate. Honestly, the best way to think about any output an AI gives you is not as finished scholarship, but as rough, unverified notes from a fallible assistant. Those notes require intense manual scrutiny on your part. To maintain total research integrity, authors absolutely must follow a rigorous 4-step verification checklist. First, you've got to check every single fact against primary sources. Second, be incredibly vigilant for hallucinated citations. AI is notoriously good at hallucinating very convincing, completely fake academic references. Seriously, it will confidently lie to you right to your face. Third, if the AI did any math or coding, you have to rerun those statistical analyses yourself. And fourth, you must verify copyright permissions using things like plagiarism checkers and reverse image searches, mainly because AI doesn't inherently adhere to academic attribution norms.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how it highlights exactly why human oversight is so vital. We often tend to think of AI as perfectly objective, right? But it actually learns from historical data, which is unfortunately full of human biases. The guidelines cite a really fascinating study where researchers asked the AI tool DALL-E 3 to generate images of Australian medical students. And the output was heavily skewed. 92% of the individuals depicted had light skin and nearly 59% were male. If a researcher were to just blindly use this output, they'd be perpetuating severe demographic biases. You are the one responsible for catching that.
Section 3. When to disclose AI use.
So here is the core dilemma for researchers. What exactly is the threshold where you have to tell a journal editor you used an AI copilot? Well, the AMY Guide outlines a really vital threshold for this. You must disclose whenever an AI tool materially shapes the research. This isn't just about getting some technical writing help, it's an epistemic threshold. If the AI influenced the research questions you asked, the methods you chose, the claims you made, or even the way you structured your argument, it has materially shaped the work. Now, trivial grammar fixes usually don't need to be disclosed, but if that AI impacted your thinking, transparency is absolutely mandatory. But here is a question that, honestly, often gets ignored. We focus so much on telling the journal, but what about telling your own research team? The guidelines highlight that a lot of authors actually hesitate to tell their co-authors they used AI. They often feel a sense of shame or they're afraid of being judged. Because of this, the guidelines strongly urge research teams to just normalize internal disclosure right from the start. Have explicit check-ins at key project milestones. Authors really need to overcome the fear of the disclosure penalty. That worry that your colleagues are going to think less of your intellectual contribution just because you used AI. By framing internal disclosure as a completely standard quality assurance process, teams can build trust and make sure everyone's contributions are accurately documented.
So, the crucial point here is perfectly captured in this simple, highly pragmatic rule of thumb: disclose when in doubt. Because journal policies are a constantly moving target, and they can change without warning. If you're ever sitting there unsure whether your use of AI crossed that materially shaped threshold, just declare it. It is always, always better to be over-transparent than to find yourself accused of hiding something down the line.
Section 4. How to disclose AI properly. It's one thing to know that you need to disclose. It's a whole other thing to write a useful statement about it. The absolute most important shift in mindset you can make is this: treat AI disclosure as routine methodological reporting, not a confession of guilt. AI is just a tool. You wouldn't apologize for using SPSS to run your stats or NVivo to code your qualitative data, right? So don't use overly defensive language or generic boilerplate disclaimers for AI either. Own your use of the tool thoughtfully. To help make this super practical, the AME Guide provides the AISPERD framework. It's basically a blueprint for writing specific, actionable disclosures. First off, specify the exact model and version you used, like ChatGPT 5.1 thinking. Second, be really precise about what it did. Don't just vaguely say, used for writing. Say it was used to generate 3 outlines from which the authors drew. And finally, always conclude with a statement affirming that you, the human authors, assume full responsibility for the accuracy and integrity of the final content. Doing it this way makes your disclosure a genuine symbol of credibility rather than just performative virtue signaling.
Section 5. Peer review and the future.
Okay, we've talked a lot about authors, but what about the peer reviewers, the gatekeepers of publishing? While the guidelines are crystal clear on this, using AI to write a peer review carries massive, massive risks. Manuscripts under review are privileged, confidential documents. If a peer reviewer uploads an unpublished manuscript into a public AI tool to help them write their review, they are actively breaching confidentiality agreements. These systems often train on user data, which means someone's unpublished life's work could literally be leaked. Human judgment, even while it's slower, simply cannot be outsourced when we are assessing the novelty and relevance of new science.
Let's move to a bit of historical context and see how this builds over time. It's incredibly easy to feel overwhelmed by AI right now, but look at this timeline. In the 1970s, calculators completely disrupted education. In the 80s, it was word processors. In the 90s, statistical software. Every single one of these caused a panic, required brand new policies, and eventually became so incredibly normalized that we no longer even declare that we use them. Generative AI is currently right in that initial period of major disruption. Disclosure is mandatory right now because the tool is new and powerful, but history strongly suggests it will eventually become just another normalized part of the scholarly workflow. Which leaves us with this final, provocative thought. The technology is going to change, the models will get smarter, and journal policies will undoubtedly shift around us. But the foundational pillars of research, accountability, transparency, and human integrity are totally timeless. As AI becomes a permanent fixture in your daily workflow, how you choose to document and disclose that partnership today truly sets the ethical standard for tomorrow. So, as we move forward, will your transparency stand the test of time? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep exploring.